Hello and welcome, I'm Chris and this is the hair tutorial channel, and on this channel I give you the tips and tricks to help you with your hairdressing career. So whether you're new to hairdressing or you're just looking to freshen up your skills or you're just stumbling through YouTube, welcome to the channel. And on this week's video I'm going to be giving you the Jenna Ortega cut. Now she is on trend, on fire, it doesn't seem to matter what she does at the moment, everybody loves her look. And what I love so much about this haircut is the structure, but the softness to it. It's very blunt and structural. However, the fringe and the internal layers really give it a softness. So, let's do it. Okay, so as you can see, I've already cut in my baseline. Now, a lot of haircuts, when they're layered, you can get away with cutting in the baseline before or after. However, I want the structure to this haircut. So I've already cut in my one length here to give it the structure that I need. Now, of course, if you want to, you can point cut, you can razor to give you a softer effect. But like I said, I really like the structure with the softness that the layers and the fringe in particular give to this cut. So we're going to start at the back, and this is going to give us our guide. Now, this is a layered haircut and there are lots of ways to layer hair. What I want here is softness but with structure. I want to keep the weight further down. So if we do a classical layer where we pull this up and then we either cut it up here or we over direct, that's going to give us much more softness. Now you can do that and it will slightly change the haircut. It'll also give you slightly more softness to the haircut. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my layer at 90 degrees straight out. And what this does is it's going to remove all the weight from here whilst keeping the top and the bottom very heavy. And again, when I'm cutting, I tend to club cut and then I soften after I've done my cut. I know that some people like to point cut, razor. Again, it's entirely up to you, but I tend to club cut, get my structure in, and then once I've got it in, I soften at the end. So our first section is going to come vertically down through the occipital and down into the nape of the neck. And then what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to pull out directly at 90 degrees and decide on the length. So what we're not going to be doing is touching the external length. Everything now is going to be internal. So if we start at the top and we pull this out at 90 degrees, you can see I've got sort of one length to play with. Your client already might have some layers in, so you might want to work off that layer. Okay, so you can see we're going to be cutting like that at 90, and we're going to cut down until we run out of hair. So we won't be touching this layer. We're not trying to connect this to this because that's an inversion, that's a graduation. We're just going to cut at 90 degrees until we've got no hair left. So this would be the shortest layer and all the weight would be centered around that area. So I don't think that's quite short enough. I don't want to go too short, but I definitely want it a little bit shorter than that. So I think I'm going to go to about that sort of length. Make sure you keep the hair at 90, and then like I said, just follow your section straight down. And you'll see that my guideline, my base of the haircut is dropping out, so I'm not touching that. I'm just following that line all the way down. And you can already see we've got a nice removal of weight, but it's still quite heavy, and we can soften this as we go. So our next section now is going to be pivoting from that point. We're going to take another section and we're going to over direct it back to the previous section. So this next section is coming back to the middle, the section after that will come back to this section after that to this, and so on until we reach the ear. Again, I do take quite large sections. It has been commented on. I do have quite large hands, and it's just the way that I tend to cut. But just make sure as you're doing this that you can always see your guideline. If ever you lose your guideline, just go back and re-find it. And that's again what I like about club cutting as well. Because the line's nice and blunt, it's very easy to see or to re-find your guideline. Okay, so then I'm going to take this middle section out that was my starting point. I'm going to get that out of the way, and now I'm going to take my next section but just come back to this section. So I'm slightly over directing it, I'm slightly building up weight, so I get a very soft graduation in towards the ear. There's no sudden sort of cut off, it's just a nice soft follow through. Okay, so again, just back to the previous section. So each time, so when I started I was right in line with my center, and each time I'm just sort of taking a step around the head and bringing it back to the previous section on the cut. Once again, you can see as we come to the bottom, we're not trying to connect it in, that is just falling right out. Once again, split that section, remove that out of the way, over direct that back just one previous section. Just remember to keep it nice and at 90 to the head. Don't drop it down, don't lift it up, because again, it will change the haircut when you do things like that. A couple more sections until we get to the ear, and then all we're going to do, of course, is repeat that on the other side. Last section. Last section, we're stopping just behind the ear, and then we'll carry on to the other side. The reason I like doing this is to get balance in the back rather than just working through one side and then working through the other. I like to get the balance on the back to make sure they're both even and they both look right, and I've got the length before moving forward to the front, because we haven't got as much hair to play with at the front. I just want to make sure the back is right. So just a slight over direction back to the previous section behind the ear. Find your guide and follow it down. You can see my baseline once again is dropping out. You don't want to be cutting into your baseline when you're doing this. Okay, same on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to move around to the side. We've gone right across the back. You can see we've got a nice bit of texture. It is very blunt. We can soften that when we need to. Okay, but now we're going to move on to our side. And you've got a couple of options when it comes to the side. And this is going to be tailoring the haircut for your client, for your client's hair texture. Maybe they don't want the fringe as well. Maybe they want a longer fringe, so this is where we can really adapt it. So you can see that by over directing back to the previous section, it's a little bit longer than it is here, so this gives us a little bit more to play with when we come to the ear. Now if the hair is very thick, you can continue to work through this front section just like you did at the back, over directing back to the previous section. If it's finer hair, what I would say is over direct everything back to just behind the ear, and that's going to leave you more to play with. You can always take it out at the end if you think it's too heavy, you can always do that, but by having more hair it gives you a little bit of a safety barrier. You don't want that sort of hair missing from here. And we're going to over direct back to our previous section, which was just behind the ear. Okay, now don't hold your fingers at 45 degrees. We're not doing a graduated bob. Okay, you want to make sure that you pull it and that you hold it still at your 90 degrees. You can see my baseline beginning to drop out there. And again, there it goes. Okay, so we haven't got a chunk, for want of a better word, missing out the hair. We've done that forward diagonal. Bringing that back means that our baseline's dropped out. We've kept the weight through this area, and if it is too heavy, we can always reduce that weight after the haircut. Once again, a forward diagonal section. Now the block's got okay hair, so I'm going to over direct back to my previous section. It's not a particularly fine block, it's not a particularly thick block, but I think we can get away with it. And we're going to pull, we're going to find our guideline, and again keeping your fingers at 90, not at 45. We'll work our way down. And you can see our guide just falls out on that. Okay, last section, we've got to put the fringe in, but I'll do that at the end. Once again, pulling this straight back just to our previous section. And there you go. Haven't touched the base, we've just got a nice internal layer there. Same on the other side, and then we're going to look at doing the fringe. Both sides are now done, and you can see we've got this beautiful sort of structure, this beautiful sort of solidness, broken up, even though I was club cutting, broken up by this layer, by this texture. So now we're going to do the fringe, and I think Jenna Ortega is known as much for the fringe as she is for any of her haircuts. She wears them just beautifully. They're just sweeping and broken up fringes. Now this can be very difficult to do on a head block. I'm going to have to leave it a little bit longer than I would probably like, just because head blocks don't really like having short fringes cut. I am going to use the twisted method, so you'll see in a second. I'm going to take it, I'm going to twist my fingers around to give me a nice sort of concave shape to the fringe, but I'm actually going to turn my fingers towards me, and what that is going to do is it's going to reverse the graduation. So rather than the fringe wanting to sort of sit under, it will help it to sort of separate and sit more like a flick off the face. We're going to take our section, we're going to roughly decide on the length that we want. Like I said, I would like to go right on the eyebrow. I don't think this block will take it, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want a sticky out fringe. Same on the client, they might want a slightly longer version of it, or they just might not have the hairline where you can do it. I'm going to put my fingers in and I'm going to twist it through 180 degrees, and then I'm going to cut. Again, I'm club cutting. You can point cut, you can razor. Okay, I think I just got away with that. That was about an okay length. Okay, and you can see we've actually got a little bit of graduation here where I beveled my fingers, partly so you can see it on the camera, but partly it works beautifully as well for this haircut, for her style. Now I'm going to go through, I'm just going to soften that a little bit. I'm going to just put some point cutting through here a tiny bit. I don't think it needs a lot, and then obviously I'm going to blow dry it and style it. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, it's all blow dried. I put some volume in it, I put a little bit of texture spray in it, and I've just gone through and broken it up where I feel it needs. But like I said, it is quite a weighty haircut, but it has softness, it has lots of texture to it. It can still be got up into a very short ponytail at the back, tucked behind the ears, the versatility of it, and I just think it is just a stunning haircut. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and I'll see you on the next one.